Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 01 p.m. I stand for the pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing the potential separation from employment of a particular employee?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are we allowed to have guests in the room when we go into executive session?
Only certain people, so
I'll leave. Am I the only one?
No.
but we are going to go back into regular session soon.
That's just the question. Usually we do that at the end of the meeting.
Correct, we are doing this at the beginning of the meeting today. This is an unusual occurrence, so did I have a motion to enter executive session? Joanne, a second. Mark? Just at an executive session to consider employment of a particular individual, and we are now have exited the executive session and are back in regular session. And since we have already called the order and pledged allegiance, the next order of business is the approval of minutes from April 20th, 2023. Barbara? I'll second. Cory? Were there any abstentions from those minutes? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from April 20th?
Yeah, can I just make one correction?
Sure.
And Jen is already aware of it, but on the lease agreement between the cafe and ourselves, number 3, we just have to, in that second sentence, unless further extended or sooner determined, it may be, put the word be renewed by the parties.
B. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Is that correct? There's a motion. A second to approve the minutes. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously at 6:22. Great, and public input session. Public input?
I don't have any public input right now. I'll let you know at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Frank, do you have any public input?
Well, I said it before, but I'll say it again, and that for all those folks that are serving, I want to just take the moment for someone who uses the library to say thank you for your service. And are you Barbara? I was just reading the plaque out here, and so I see your name on there in 1992, and I used the old library down at the, down what was it, the old grocery store next across from Phillips there years ago. So a special thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Doesn't cost money.
It's better than mine.
All right. Personnel actions. The first personnel action is a resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Guilderland Public Library hereby accepts the resignation of Lisa Pitkin from her employment with the library for retirement purposes effective June 2nd, 2023, and approves the leave she requested from May 26th to June 2nd, 2023. We thank Lisa for her service to the library for over 20 years. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So
Barbara? A second? I'll second. Cory. All right. All in favor of approving this resolution, please indicate by saying aye. Anyone opposed? All right, the resolution passes unanimously at 6:24.
we do the other thing you do.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. My papers got messed up. Okay. And the other, also, in our personnel actions this evening, to approve the appointments of Sarah Boldy, part-time library clerk in the Circulation and Collection Services Department, effective May 1st, 2023. And Jacqueline Every, provisional appointment, full-time fiscal officer 2 in the Administrative Department, effective May 3rd, 2023. And to approve the promotional appointment of Michelle
Boydell.
Boyd, thank you. Full-time library clerk to full-time library assistant in the Programs and Public Services Department effective May 8th, 2023. And to accept the resignation of Beth Rienti, full-time librarian 2 in Programs and Public Services Department effective May 12th, 2023. May I have a motion to approve the personnel actions on state? Marcia? Second? I'll second. Joanne? Okay, all in favor of approving the so stated personnel actions, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Says unanimously. All right. The next order of business is the treasurer's report for April 2023.
So I'm going to step in here and say that our treasurer, George Wilhelm, is on a wonderful sounding trip to Europe that concludes on June 6th. It's a big day in European American history. But anyway, he'll be back on June 6th. He has prepared his monthly financials, and David and Jackie have prepared the regular monthly financials as well. I don't know that any of us are prepared to give a report based on these monthly financials, but based on a discussion with George in advance of the meeting, I know that he saw no major issues. I don't know if David or Jackie, and let me take a moment to introduce Jackie Every, who is our new fiscal officer, and has been.
Disappointed.
Thank you. Thank you for no votes.
I don't know if either of you have anything to say about the monthly financials or anything else related to the treasurer's report at this point, but if you do, you're welcome to.
Nope, George was completely satisfied with everything he got and his picture of what he needed for the finances to be before he went happily off on his trip. So you'll probably hear that when he gets back. I'm sure he'll make up for lost time. So
He's a hardworking guy.
He is.
He got the, you close the month's books, and that happened, I believe, either late Wednesday night or late Thursday night, and he was going out of the country on Friday. But he asked David to send them to him, and he rolled up his sleeves at, I think, 10 at night and looked at those financials. So,
Yep.
Anyway, so I don't have a report, and I gather that David, George, and Jackie don't have a report either, so. We can certainly address any questions about the check register when that comes up, because we know what checks were made.
Okay, well, if there's no questions, someone might know that answer. The financial reports.
I think the procedure, wouldn't it be to approve them, to approve the treasurer's report for April next time? Is
We
that?
do not approve the treasurer's report.
Okay,
It's just a
Okay,
report.
got it.
We approve the check register, so maybe you can speak to that
Sure.
since we.
Honestly, I've signed all the checks and I've reviewed the check register, and they're all just the pro forma type stuff. I'm giving a quick skim to see if there's anything even slightly unusual. And the one, the a check at the top for $3,650 was the last minute adjustments to the carpentry in the cafe room. That we've talked about in a Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, but the carpentry is now complete, so that's the last bill we're going to see there. There are some bills for restaurant equipment that we have purchased that may show up on next year or next month's check register. But other than that, this is all just people who are giving programs and maintenance supplies and standard fees for things we buy every month, or in some cases every quarter, et cetera. So I have nothing unusual to report.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the check register for May 2023? Robert? Right. All in favor of approving the check register for May 2023, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? All right, passes at 6:30. Okay. Next order of business. Your
Okay.
report.
Great. So the first thing I wanted to do, I already basically did, which is to welcome Jackie to the employment at the library as the fiscal officer. As you know, if you saw my email, she brings, I believe, 25 years of experience, 28 years of experience with the town of Rotterdam. So she's familiar with a lot of the public accounting that we do. She's gotten up to speed quite quickly. Started work.
The property tax caps are done. We're going for the AUVs.
There you go. And you started work 2 weeks ago yesterday, right? Okay. And then I want to thank David Gilliam. He's done a tremendous job helping her learn where everything is and what our procedures are. And this is the third time since you guys demonstrated the wisdom of hiring David Gilliam as an assistant fiscal officer that David has carried the ball for us during an interim between two fiscal officers. So thank you very much, David. I want to mention briefly the cafe preparation. So I just mentioned that the carpentry is done and most of the restaurant equipment is here. Some is still on order. The ladies who own the cafe are in there pretty much every day, sorting things out and getting ready. They would like to be open, of course, yesterday. They're just waiting on this restaurant equipment. And once that's in, they then have to get their health department inspection. It's a little bit frustrating to be saying it could be 2 weeks and it could be 4 weeks and it could be 6 weeks. The big variable right now is how quickly the county provides the health inspection, because the restaurant equipment will come within the next 10 days or so, and then they'll be ready if the county blesses the endeavor. So we will keep you posted, but most likely you'll be learning about the opening of the cafe through an email and or a text, like they're ready to open tomorrow, that sort of thing. So want to thank Natalie and Sarah, who've been tremendously busy with various personnel situations. We have completed all the interviews for replacing Beth Rienti and expect to make an appointment quite soon for a new head of youth services. And if you look at either of their pages in the monthly report packet, you'll see, I want to say 6 or 7 jobs that have been filled by them with, in almost all cases, someone being hired from within. But there's been some holes we've left open for a little while. During negotiation, we had holes open because we didn't necessarily want to replace people and didn't know how much we were going to be paying them and so forth. But they have been very, very busy just on those subjects. And there's plenty of other things in their reports that you can see that they're doing. I do want to call your attention to, in Natalie's report, she and Elish have come up with some opportunities for both board and foundation members to volunteer at some events. And I would like to endorse that because I think that's a good step towards breaking down any barriers that we feel between the board, the staff, and the foundation. So that's great. 7 staff, including Jenna, Sarah, myself, and I'm not sure about you, Natalie, I can't remember, but 7 of us attended notary training. You did as well? Okay, so we'll be strengthening, assuming we pass the exam, strengthening our notary presence soon. Also want to call out Natalie for her passport program. There's a number of Guilderland High School students, I think it's 30, correct? That are
12.
12, sorry.
Could be more.
Could be more than 12, but 12 high school students and their families are coming in together on the same evening, early in June, to get their passports for a trip to
Costa Rica?
Costa Rica. Okay, so that's just a great thing, a great service for the public. I do want to publicly thank Lisa Pitkin for all of her good work over the last 25 years. And then I want to thank Luann. The Narcan press event was very well done. And our 2 art school exhibits that Frank mentioned on his way back into the room have been tremendous public feedback, and a lot of people coming through the door to attend these art exhibits. And also call your attention to the UHLS expedition that's going on. So between, I believe, April and July, if you attend all 36 or visit all 36 libraries in the system and get a stamp on a passport from each of them, then you can get a gold library card if you've never done that before, and a platinum one if you have done that before. And it sounds somewhat silly and geeky, but you'd be amazed how interested the public is on it. Hundreds of people a day coming in to get the stamp. And the Guilderland Library, for the 2 months that it's been going on, has finished either first or second in people visiting for that purpose out of 36 facilities. Now, in all fairness, we're on a major road, and we're a big destination, and some of these libraries are so small they have only 1 employee, so their hours are limited. We have wide open hours like the other big libraries, but it's a great thing. In the CERC department, the year-over-year CERC is up, so April to April is up, but you'll notice that our CERC numbers are down from March to April, down by close to 10%. So I wonder if that might have something to do with weather improving. I don't know, but at any rate, April to April is still good. Last month, 61% of our transactions happened on self-check machines. There are 2 schools of thought about self-check machines, but they certainly offer quickness and they offer privacy, which people sometimes want with library materials. And then lastly, the kids love them. And then the automated handling system, I sent our former employee, Phil Berardi, a text the other day. I said, not only is this automated handling system, much more efficient and faster than people, but kids love it to the extent that I saw an instance of people coming out of the youth department where they had checked out their materials and the kids wanted to immediately return them. And the parent had to say, well, we take them home and read them first. But at any rate, fun stuff. Want to thank Lisa Pitkin again, and also Diane Bruins for new signage on the book drops and book returns, and also for carts that particularly elderly patients are enjoying. These sort of smaller, not patients, elderly clients are enjoying these carts because they can push them around the library and kind of be supported at the time. In our adult services department, I want to welcome Christina Ronald, who was an internal promotion to be the head of that department, as Maria Buell moves over to collections and community outreach and engagement. Community engagement and outreach, sorry about that. Christina's adult services report is, of course, a new format than the way Maria did it in the past. But Maria's report, which is in your packet, is really interesting. I think you're going to be hearing a lot more about community engagement and outreach from her. But one of the things that she's already done in less than a month is started book discussion groups at the Beverwick and the Peregrine facility in Guilderland, which is just really a wonderful thing to do because those people can't really get here, or they can get here, but it's much, much harder than it is for those of us who still live at home. She's also begun setting up programs with the Wildwood group, the Community Caregivers SUNY Albany, the Guilderland Senior Services, and the Literacy Volunteers of Rensselaer County. Why Rensselaer County? Because there is no such group for Albany County at present. There used to be. So she's got an interesting report in there. Obviously, we want to thank Beth Rienti for all of her service here. I think she was here about 12 years and wish her the best. And then I want to credit our teen program. I think I should be crediting Brianna Walkowitz for this. We had a fabulous event in the Helderberg Room. It was a pop-up exchange shop for people going to the prom. So you could get dresses, shoes, whatever else you need to go to the prom that somebody else had already used. And they purchased this small collapsible tent so that the person who was going to try something on could go inside the tent and have privacy to try something on. And it was very successful and just a very novel community service. Also, I want to just, I'm almost done, but call out Sean. In addition to running the IT department very well, he does programming at the library, which is a bonus. And so for hosting state-run hunter education and voter education programs, thank you, Sean. 20 people came to the hunter ed and 28 people to the voter ed. And then John Lorang, who you saw coming in to help us with our executive session and so forth. Just one of the little things we do is that we just informally offer to go over to the Minders House and Minders Frederick House and keep the computer that the Guilderland Historical Society has in good shape. So it's just a little field trip every once in a while to kind of clean it up for them. So John, that was a good thing. Maintenance department has been very, very busy. The regrading of the backyard back by the shed, the repair of the shed, the annual service of the air conditioning system has happened. So if you feel chilly tonight, it's because the air conditioning is working. A lot of new outdoor furniture has been assembled, power washer purchased, and old furniture power washed and refinished, and then new furniture assembled for outside of the cafe. So those guys have been busy as well. So that is my report.
Any questions for Tim? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. I know there have been some meetings, so Alicia, do you have a report on buildings and grounds?
No, we didn't meet. I anticipate having one pretty shortly after this meeting. There were a lot of other committee meetings going on, so I felt that just with the time constraints, I didn't want to cram another one in there for everyone. So we had nothing really pressing at the moment. Just the update on the cafe, Tim pretty much just gave. So it looks like we're in good shape. There's a couple little stragglers. Insurance took a little longer than we had anticipated. There were some pieces of equipment that also took a little bit to come in, but it looks like everything's on track now. So we're just ready to roll. And if you peek on your way out, you can see kind of where it's at. There's a lot of, visual changes in there too. So it's looking really nice. I know the book room's pretty much squared away. I did get to see that the other day, and that's pretty much done. Where the book sales are going to be, it looks really cute. There's like a little book nook. So feel free to check it out on your way out.
Great, thanks.
If you do want to check it out, you'll have to ask me because I think they got tired of people peering into the windows, so they put newspaper over the, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind if I took more in, so.
All right, Barbara, any long-range planning meetings recently?
We did. We met a couple of days ago, a very short meeting, because with a long-range plan, you really need input both from the community and the board, staff, and the administration. And what we ran up against this year is that the staff didn't want to participate in the long-range plan until the union negotiations were done. And now that they're done, Natalie assures me that, they will participate. But as a board, I really would like to give you guys a little bit of homework for the next meeting. Right now, our mission statement that we as a board already, agreed to reads, the mission of the GPL is to provide equal access to physical and digital materials programs and services to our community for lifelong learning, number one, cultural enrichment and enjoyment. And what I will do before the next meeting is send you out like a little sheet. I'll make it up, Jenna can send it out. And with just 3 little spaces. Put on your thinking caps. And what do you envision for the future? How can we offer members of our community with more learning opportunities? Are there things out there that we haven't thought about or that you'd like to see? Number 2, how can we offer cultural enrichment to members of our community? Have you seen things in other libraries? Have you read about things? Anything. But we need the collective wisdom of everybody at this table. And how can we offer opportunities for enjoyment at GPL? You know, right now we have concerts, we have all kinds of activities, but is there something else that you've heard about that you would like to see? We have come such a long way in services to the community since I got here. You know, a lot has to do with Sean and his ideas and staff ideas, you know, everything from wheelchairs to programs, you know. It's been fantastic. But I'm sure there's always more that we can do. And actually, Frank, I'm going to hit you up too, because you're a regular library user, probably for a long time. And I'm sure you have a circle of friends, so we will try to solicit you, your friends, as many people as we can in the community. Because although.
I mentioned it to the Kiwanis Club, for example.
Exactly. Any contacts like that you would have, you know, Luann, as you all know, sent out a questionnaire, I think September, October, and it ran for a number of months. And we got about 238 people, I think, that responded to it. But that's just a small sampling. We're about 38,000 people in this community. And we found out, you know, apparently a lot of them don't have library cards. They don't know what we have to offer, which is fantastic stuff. So as I said, by the next meeting, if you can just put your thinking caps on, try to, as I said, just imagine the future, because that's what long-range planning is. And we've developed our mission, so how do we now fulfill that mission? Certain things that we do are part of it already, but if there's something new, innovative, it doesn't have to be new and innovative, but something that you might have seen that you want or whatever. I would like to take a block of time if, you know, we can have it maybe 10 minutes for a discussion after you bring your ideas to the table. Just so that we sort of have a foundation to spring off of. And then over the course of time, you know, we will do hopefully more community involvement. Like you said, the Kiwanis or the
One of many services.
KFCs, the Elks Club, the Senior Citizens Group, go to them because obviously they all haven't come to us. But the one thing that we need tonight is a resolution, according to Natalie, that we just reapprove our old model, long-range plan, because I guess you said it was due July 30th. June 30th.
When it runs out.
And, you know, we will have a fresh year next year to come up with our new plan. But in the interim, we need a motion tonight, or we can do it in June, right? We can do it in June to just simply renew our current plan, which is old, but it will have to make do, because as I said, you really have to have staff involvement, you have to have the administration, you have to have the community on board. So, you know, when you have all 3 working together, you come up with a good plan, as we did, you know, 5 or 6 years ago. So, that's my report, I guess. If we could have like 10 minutes at the next board meeting, and I'll send out, you know, just like a little reminder, piece of paper with our mission statement and a few questions.
I don't think that their current plan is part of this packet, so maybe in June.
I think it was it sent out to everybody or not, Jenna?
Just the committee.
Oh, okay. All right, we can do it. We'll do it in June and we'll send it out in the meantime.
So it can just be part of our packet. So
Next time.
take a look at it.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Okay, and I believe there was a finance meeting.
Yes, the finance committee met on Monday this week. We had a few things on our agenda. Jackie was there and was able to introduce herself to the committee. We discussed the current status of the tax certiorari. Just where that stands, and some of those the reductions in our tax revenues due to the certiorari settlements. Some of those had been deducted out of tax levy payments that had not yet been made to the library, but we have received the entirety of this year's tax levy payments. So some of the last tax certiorari settlements we'll have to just basically write a check and pay that money back. It's a reduction of the total amount that the library is going to get. But that is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think at this point, though, there's nothing else outstanding on the tax certiorari. The last of them are done. So there's nothing hanging out there that we're going to get hit with another reduction in our funds for this year, at least. Then there was an update on it's an issue we've discussed before, but it's the accounting of the grants that were received and how that affects how much money we owe out of the bond proceeds that has to get paid back to the school district because it's unused funds. And depending on how we account for those grants, whether those grants can count toward the library's portion of the library's contribution to the construction project, there is a potential difference of about $500,000 in whether that money stays in the library's reserves or whether it goes back to the school district. The approach that we believe is correct and believe is acceptable is that money can stay with the library, does not have to go pay back, but to kind of nail that down and try and make sure everybody is satisfied that this is the correct approach. The plan was to reach out to the auditors to have them review and just kind of look at all the materials and everything that's been learned and give their seal of approval that is okay. So that's where things stood, was that that was the next step, was to reach out to the auditors. Because of this, the audit report, the audit for this year is still, we're kind of way past the normal time when that would be done, but this issue is kind of outstanding and hanging there. So that will probably end up rolling into next year before the audit gets finalized, just because this has to kind of it's a big piece of it's a large amount of money that needs to be accounted for and dealt with. So that's where that stands right now. But we're getting bit by bit closer to finally resolving that and having that closed out. The last issue is it's basically the finance committee. It's kind of I guess a project going forward, and again something that'll probably have to get carried into next year, and the new members of the committee, hopefully, if this is something that people want to push forward with, is looking into kind of best practices and our available options on how we are handling reserve funds and whether we should be creating certain dedicated restricted reserve funds for particular purposes to the extent that's permitted under New York law, and also how we should be basically incorporating that into our budgeting process in planning for how much we should be saving away in our reserves every year, because the practice, at least over recent years, has been it's kind of been fairly arbitrary without a set amount, without a kind of well-planned target of how much money we ought to be saving away every year and for what purposes. And so we want to try and kind of make that more just kind of formalize and have a better picture of exactly what we're expecting this money to be used for in the future. And are we, is the amount of money that we're kind of putting aside for future purposes, is it appropriate? Is it the right amount? It should be, are we taking more than we need? are we, underfunding, our future things, whatever, just we want to get a handle on that. And so we're just in the initial stages of figuring out what our options are and how to move forward with that. That's kind of an issue, hopefully going forward. That's it.
Well, busy meeting. Thank you. So you mentioned audit, but that's not,
Right, so audit committee has not met.
personnel committee meeting?
Yep, so I was not made aware of the need for the personnel or labor management committees to meet, so we did not meet.
Okay. And now the policy committee, I know,
Vanessa's not here, but she asked, we did have a meeting.
Okay.
And she asked that I just report out from the meeting. Jack was there, Mike, Vanessa was there, but couldn't make this meeting. So if you remember the last board meeting, Assembly County Legislative Mark Grimm came in to speak to the board.
Mhm.
And he requested that we take a look at the possible change of policy as to the room use in the library. And his position was, as he stated, that the rooms should be available for home business use, that businesses pay taxes in Guilderland. And he felt, I wouldn't say strongly, but he made his position clear that he thought we should review the policy we now have in terms of who may use the room and for what purposes. So we, as a policy committee, took that into consideration, and we had a meeting just this week on Tuesday. So at the meeting, we discussed the current policy, and we are taking a look at it to see what revisions need to be made. But we had a very full discussion as to just philosophically and practically how we felt the rooms should be used. And some of us felt strongly that to provide rooms for businesses was not in keeping with the purpose of the library and could present a slippery slope for what can come down the road. And all of us, had a particular position. It was a memo sent by Chris, and we've asked to have the questions put to Chris to refine the memo or expand the memo because the number of issues came up. So this is a work in progress. We haven't reached any decisions, and people, have their views right now. But at this point in time, a memo will be put together to ask Chris a series of questions. Just to give you some flavor, the question is whether the rooms could be used for tutoring. Was that a business purpose, for profit or proctoring? And so there are lots of issues involved in the room, the use of the rooms, and it's a work in progress. So I just wanted to report out to you that's where we are on the room use. We talked very briefly about two other policies that we need to consider. One is to put together a revised investment policy for the library and also a collections policy. And Natalie said something around today on collections, which unfortunately I couldn't open Natalie as usual, but you'll help me with that. And so the policy committee has been pretty busy, and those are the three areas we're working on. The ripest one right now is discussion about the room use. So Mike and Ted, if you have anything to add.
I think that was good.
Okay, that's the report.
All right, thank you. Sounds like a lot of work to be done. All right, haven't had a meeting for board development yet. Foundation, anything from the foundation?
Yeah, so the foundation didn't meet this past month due to quorum issues, but I do want to mention the golf tournament again, which they're working feverishly and planning and getting sponsors for. That is August 28, 2023 at Orchard Creek between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. The levels of sponsorships are Eagle for 2,000, Birdie for 1,000, R for 500, and T boxes for $150, which is not that much. We're looking for a golf ball sponsor, so like to put their name on the golf ball, that would be $750 as needed. And then if you want to golf and tell everyone that you know that golfs to come to the event, it's $165 a person. $660 for a foursome, and $35 for the 19th hole celebration guest ticket if you just want to come and enjoy the end of it. And that's all I have regarding the foundation.
Lori, anything from UHLS?
So I will just reiterate what Tim said about doing the expedition. It's a valuable use of your time if you can make it around to a couple of libraries just to see how other places operate, what they look like. It helps, I think, inform how we are as a board when we understand how other libraries, in addition to Guilderland, are operating as well. And it's just fun to see them. And then also, I know Natalie sent out the message about the annual meeting for UHLS, which is like a heavy hors d'oeuvres event, and they'll be announcing awards there. And so it's going to be fun to hear what some of the other libraries around here have done for programs and outstanding folks. Even might generate some ideas for what Guilderland wants to do in the future. So I would encourage you to get back to Natalie if you want to attend that as well.
That's your $40 ticket is covered by the Board Development Fund. It's a good networking opportunity in the library community. And then it's, so trying to say this nicely, people do occasionally bring a significant other, a spouse, et cetera. But if you do bring that person, they pay their own way. Because it makes sense for us to get you guys rubbing elbows with other library people, but not your spouses. Sorry.
Okay. Was there any old business? I don't see any listed.
I think,
Yes.
2 meetings ago, we had a fireman, a volunteer fireman, come and ask whether or not we could participate, as I think the town is, in reducing the tax burden. I don't know by what amount or whatever, for volunteer firemen, because they're having trouble recruiting, I guess, and it certainly would be helpful. And we were going to find out basically how many firemen, families would be affected by this. And I don't know if we have or if we haven't, but I don't know
We're
what the
seeing what the
timetable
school
is.
was doing too. And
Yeah.
I don't know if the school has voted on this.
I don't think as of now they have, but we emailed after the last board meeting where I think someone brought this up, and it was 2 meetings ago that Paul was here, but, so I emailed Marie, and, she said they had a committee still working on it, that if and when they approve it, then they need to hold a public hearing. So she thinks it's gonna take, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but my impression was several more months for the school district to decide what they're doing. I did ask, just theoretically, I believe I might have asked Kathy and Marie, like, since they are the taxing entity, it would seem to make sense that the smaller part of the taxing entity, the library, simply follow suit with whatever the school district decides to do, because if the two entities compute the tax for individual taxpayers differently, I mean, it's all one formula, right? So, so it seems to make sense. I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth or in my wife's mouth, but it seems to make sense to wait to see what they're going to do so that we can consider doing the same thing, so that somebody somewhere doesn't have to hit a lot of keys on the, computer and figure out which, because the library portion of the property tax, I think, is about 4% of the whole property tax bill for the school district. And you want everybody's tax to be computed the same way, you would think. It's going to add a step if, for example, they approved the exemption and we did not, it would make it harder to calculate the individual impact on each taxpayer. So complicated. We keep reaching out once a month or so. They haven't quite figured out what they're doing. We also need to find out, in my opinion, from our lawyer, whether we also would have to hold a public hearing on it, or the public hearing that the school district holds might suffice for you guys to make that decision. But
Since we impose a separate, we probably would have to hold our own public hearing,
Okay.
but we would have I think it makes sense to wait and see what the school district does, just because, they're obviously very large percentage of the tax.
Yeah.
Did we find out how many firemen would be affected?
No, but we did ask, somebody how many firefighters there are.
But
Yeah.
not everyone is eligible.
Right.
It's a little bit complicated, the way that it's written. It's not so straightforward, like someone is a volunteer firefighter, therefore they get the exemption. I think there's some other criteria that come in there. And so, and don't ask me what it is, because I don't know, but it's not like as straightforward as that. It's a little bit more
Could we
complex.
get the criteria from the town because they've approved it, right?
They, I think they approved a town law, like they do it. They do it differently, like the town board approves an actual document that's I guess I would say the town law, so it's lengthy. I mean, I got a copy of it at one point, and it's pretty long and it's pretty complicated. So, it's not that we can't do it. It's just that it's not as completely straightforward as you would like it to be. So,
Well, whenever we can get our hands on it before we vote on it, we should really, get a look at it. And the town is ahead of us, so they know more than we do already, so maybe we can just pick their brains and we can get a copy of it, just, I'm sure Jen can send it out to all of us and take a look at it. So does it maybe go by income levels or something?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I wouldn't. I don't have it in my mind that, exactly what's going on. I just know it's a little more complicated than just somebody is a wild volunteer firefighter, therefore they get the exemption. I mean, it's not as quite as easy as that. I mean, it's just, but don't ask me what, don't quiz me on exactly what it is, because I don't know.
I mean, what was he working off of when he approached us and asked us? I mean, he made it sound as though, every firefighter would be eligible, and if obviously, from what you've learned, they're not, so how many of them would be? I think we need to know that, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, yes, I mean, you'd have to know when you had the public hearing and you determined, that you were going to reduce the tax in that on volunteer firefighters, then yes, you would have to determine who is eligible and how many tax reductions you're doing, but we're not there yet, so
Yeah.
so I don't think that's really it.
The town would have to post the public hearing, obviously. And so perhaps
already
we can, as board members, be made aware of that.
I will
And
definitely.
attend. Some of us should attend.
The
because
school
I think a
district.
lot of
The school
new
district,
information we're
yeah.
finding out as a purposeful
But
statement.
often what the school district does is, half an hour before the board meeting, they'll have a public
We should know.
meeting there, so that, inconveniencing a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
They're there for both meetings if they want, or just the one.
But it would be noticed.
Would be
Yeah,
noticed.
oh, you have
Yeah,
to
so you
notice
would
it.
know,
Yeah.
there's a public hearing on the exemption for firefighters on this day at this
Exactly.
time. So when it
Right.
is, so.
So
But
we
it could
could
be
go-
the same day as your board meeting, is what I'm saying, just preceding your board meeting.
I think at least Tim should go and maybe Scott should go, because I think some of the, I'm guessing as a prefatory statement, they would lay out what the law is.
Right.
Who might be affected
have
by
to,
it. You
right.
could certainly ask questions at the hearing. So a lot of those questions would probably get answered, in
Right.
addition to which they might hand out
I did
the law.
find the email exchange, and it's in a committee at the school now, but will be on the agenda for their board meeting of May 23rd. Not necessarily to be decided that night, but to be discussed. If decided, then they need to schedule a public hearing which Marie says June at the earliest.
Yeah, they have to notice it. Yeah. And depending upon what the law says, they have to give some, X number of days.
So the enterprise has it listed about with the town and it says grants an exemption of 10% on town taxes. So I assume it's the same thing they're asking for on the school and library taxes to active firefighters with 2 years of service, and a volunteer with 20 years of active service gets a lifetime exemption. The law also grants exemptions for surviving spouses.
That's great.
That's from the enterprise, so.
Now, are you able to send that to Jen so she can send it out to us?
I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, I can, it's just a newspaper article that included that, but yeah, I will.
More
Mhm.
information than we had, so that's great. Yeah.
It's my understanding, and I'm not campaigning, I don't have a position on this, but it's my understanding that the total amount of money collected by the school district will stay the same. So it's not a tax cut for everybody. It's a tax cut for people who serve as firefighters.
It's like the veterans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and when I was on, you were on the school board when we granted the exemption for veterans.
Right.
I mean, and I don't remember the actual process, but I remember doing it, so, you know. Been done before, could be done again. All right,
I don't know.
any more old business to be discussed? All right, hearing none. New business, we have our budget vote and trustee election results.
So Luann emailed them out, but thank you, Corey and Bill for running and
And being elected.
and being elected. And 69.25% approval rate is the highest, I believe, in the 9 years that I've been here, and about 4% higher than last year. So that's good. I did make a comment when I was interviewed by Melissa Hill Spencer in the Enterprise that I'd like to make again here. It came out in the Enterprise today. I mentioned that the library is undergoing its strategic planning process and that we would like to hear from people who voted no on the budget to have a dialogue with them either as individuals or representing groups to try to present what the public library does that they may not know about. And the way the quote was used in the paper was fine, but it said, for example, people may not know that about 50% of our circulation these days is of electronic items that are streamed to people's devices, and that there may well be people in our community who are paying Netflix or Amazon for things that they can get for essentially for free, prepaid in your taxes through us. So, anyone who's voting against our budget, obviously they have the right to do that. But I would encourage all of us to see those people as an opportunity to educate about the library and see if we can get some people using the library that haven't been here in a while.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if this was at every polling place, but I vote right across the street. And they had an exit poll that they were asking you to take that had to do with the school board vote. And I don't know if the library could do something similar in a future year.
That's a great idea. It is at every polling place.
Okay,
So I will ask if we can add some questions, because I would think if it was the same exit poll, people would do it, but if you had to do two separate exit
yeah.
polls,
because there was a question like, did you vote yes? I mean, I'm sure most of you took it, did you vote yes or no on the, and I think if it said no, there was a box to include your rationale.
yeah, yep, that's a great idea. Thank you. Yep. We also theoretically could design that into our next round of surveying, although one of the sort of flaws with our survey methods is you kind of hear about our surveys if you are connected to the library, So anyway. I will ask if we can get into that survey.
Great. So we have here on the agenda the July board meeting date, and I know that I remember of people who are going to be absent for the July meeting is late in the month. It's the 20th. So, guess the question was, do we have at least 6 people in the room who are not gonna,
We're not gonna be here.
who are not gonna be, elsewhere or virtual? Like, I'm gonna actually be virtual today because I'm gonna be, away. But,
What's the date?
the date is July the 20th. So,
So I'm traveling. I responded to that email. I wouldn't be able to attend at all, and I would love to be able to attend.
I'll be returning, but not here yet.
you won't be here on July 20th.
I'm back from overseas and we'll be back late the 20th, so I won't be functional.
If you're coming back from Europe, that makes sense. Yeah, I get that.
Okay,
I have a meeting elsewhere, but I'm not quite sure of the date,
so,
out of the state.
okay, so you might not be here on the 20th.
I mean, I could let you know when I have the date.
Okay. So is anyone gonna be here on the 20th? Corey and
I can attend as well, Alicia.
Rich and Meg. Joanna, I'm afraid we won't be I'm not here anymore. Okay. Barbara, are you gonna be around?
I may be physically here or I may be able to do it remotely.
Okay, well, we can't have, remote meetings. Under the open meetings law, we have to have at least 6 people in the room. So I know we have a couple people not here, but, so we have Vanessa not here and Tony. Wait, I'm counting.
I could let you know as soon as I know.
Okay. So I suppose if both Vanessa and Tony are here, available, and you're available, could have 6.
Is July 13 better? For people?
July 13th, I could be in person on the 13th. I will not be here. So, we get Norina, get me. Do we get anybody else on the 13th?
I'm still.
I can do the 13th.
Got Leash. Mike, you can do the 13th?
Yeah.
Ted, are you around? Okay.
Barb, are you here
Again, either physically or
on the
remotely.
13th?
So you might be here?
Yeah, but more likely the remote on the 13th, maybe physically present on the 20th.
Okay.
I'll let you know. I couldn't do it virtually because the meeting will take up my time. So, but I'll let you know as soon as I know.
So you let me know either
Either date.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you were available, well, I'm not sure. I just don't know. Well, I guess we don't have everyone, so
Yeah, I think
maybe.
because we're missing 2 people.
Yeah, so, well, we'll see. Sounds like either date is not particularly good, but possibly we get more people on the 13th. I don't know. Yeah, sometimes it's easier to have meetings. I guess no corridor. So. All right, well, we'll table that for now and just maybe do some more emailing. Just to check with people, you know, to see what, what's the best plan? All right. Okay, was there any additional new business?
I have one thing. I think if I remember correctly, at our July board meeting is we usually do we vote on the approved vendors, like our outside legal counsel or the accountants, those kind of things. And I think it was, somebody brought to my attention that it had been a number of years since the last time those were put up for bid. And so the question was raised whether we want to do that prior to the July meeting to consider whether we want to try to rebid those and potentially change any of those various vendors. So I just wanted to raise that. I don't know what the time frame we need on that is, but.
So I'll be very honest about my own response to that. I thought that the board had directed me to issue an RFP for legal services. And it happened just before our previous fiscal officer decided to leave our employ. And when something like that happens, I never got to it. I have a question about that, which I hope sounds respectful and honest, which is that I think we need to know whether the board is hiring a lawyer or the library is hiring a lawyer. But it does seem to me, especially with the number of lawyers on our board, that at minimum, that it would be helpful to have some board involvement in that process of selecting who the legal counsel might be. Because I have never once in my life hired a lawyer. And so, I think Kathy actually maybe even sent me an RFP that the town had used for the same thing. Does that ring a bell?
I don't know. I think it might have been for something different,
Okay, yeah.
but I don't know, it might have been.
I did email my peer directors and nobody had a copy of an RFP for legal services. So I'm happy to dive in, especially now that I have this great administrative team that is fully stocked, and roll up my sleeves and find out what a legal RFP document looks like. But
We did this maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Or for audit, right?
No, for both.
Okay.
We also did one for legal affairs. And so somewhere in our archives, there probably is one that was used, but it can't hurt to research others as well.
Sure. So if it's your group's will to do one for either legal or audit, I guess this is a fine time to reaffirm that we'd like to do an RFP for legal services. I can't remember.
We should know how far back it went and how far back the audit one went. Wasn't the audit just like 3 years ago, maybe?
Maybe 5 now, 4 or 5.
Well,
I
the
was here.
timeframe for July might be a little tight
Yeah,
at this point, wouldn't it?
I would think, but
Yeah, by the time you get it out, then by the time people have time to respond,
yeah.
why don't you plan for it for next year?
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing that says we can't change those. I mean, we could still approve our current vendors in July, and if it was a few months later that we got the RFPs out and decided to go with someone else, we could just vote to change our approved, vendors. But I don't think there's any reason we're locked into those just because we vote in July.
Well, it's a question of, do we have contracts?
I don't know, do
I think
we?
they send an annual contract renewal and probably in July. I can look that up.
It's on a contract that we can't get out.
Well, except for legal counsel, you can't be bound.
Right.
So I don't know how it would be for the auditors and, if there's any other vendors, but for legal counsel, you can't be required to stick with
Yeah, you can't be held.
yeah, so.
Right.
So,
I think you could just fire them at will.
but maybe it makes sense to do it for next year if it would be cleaner just to do it. And I don't know if beyond the auditors and the legal counsel, I don't recall what are the other vendors on the list, but, you know, maybe we look at the whole list and see if, you know, there are others we need to, you know, that it's been long enough that we need to rebid.
There's one that's the newspaper of record. It just only makes sense to use the Enterprise because it's our local newspaper. And I'm not even sure that's a business relationship. The banks, okay. Yep.
So I guess we only have monthly meetings, so if we're posting notice in the paper, then a weekly is okay with us.
I assume, I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's ever asked that, but that's a good question.
Well,
What time do you need this with daily?
maybe I think before the July meeting, the library can review its vendors and tell us if there's any problems with any of them that they would like changed. And we can at least consider that.
Sure.
And I would be curious just as to when the last time it was done, maybe getting it on a cycle is gonna be our best bet, 5, 7 years, something.
That's generally what I hear as the right length of time. The legal firm that we have used for the entire 9 years that I've been here. There may have been an RFP for legal services, but during those 9 years, but I don't recall it. But I do know that we wanted to make a switch with auditing. I think it's about 4 or 5 years ago.
We did change them in 2019.
Okay, 2019.
And
so
more than
4
4
years.
years since that time.
Yeah.
I think it was a 3 or 4 year contract when it first started.
Mhm. So I personally I can get together with Jackie and David and see if there's any concern about the audit firm and whether they feel that it's time to go forward. Legal would be sort of all of our, you know, if you have any, I don't know what the proper way to go forward is, but if you have thoughts and concerns about our legal counsel, think about that before the next meeting, because I think Norina has said, you know, can we review our vendors? And let you know if we have any concerns. But with legal, I would think it would be our concerns as well as your concerns, possibly with audit as well. Anyway.
And nothing about putting out the RFP precludes our current folks from
Right.
Yes.
submitting again.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Right, I had a couple of things, if we can, we're moving on to other things, because the July meeting is coming up, should the nominating committee meet again? And because we gotta get some names of people that are interested for the positions that will be up for vote again in July, and maybe meet to get, so we need a deadline to get those names, and then we need a deadline for us to meet and make a decision and present to the board in July.
Send out, excuse me, I'll send out the email tomorrow or Monday to the nominating.
And then the other, I had a couple of things that people have approached me about, and I don't know if this is right, like, and you probably should just talk to Tim about it, but someone's asked me about whether the library is gonna have a book sale anytime in the future, because other libraries are having them, and so they were interested in our library book sale. And then the other program that someone had suggested, it's a neighbor of mine, I think I'm just gonna read what he sent me. I have an idea for an interesting program that could be taken up at the library. I didn't know who the right person was to approach. The program would create an archive of local Guilderland stories by inviting residents to come and tell their stories and record it on videotape. People would be invited to come and listen to the storytellers when they told their stories. The stories would all be from 5 to 10 minutes long. They could be about any topic, Guilderland history, or just any interesting story that happened to that person. No restriction of content of the stories. And it would cost the library hardly anything, just the use of the room and eventually a storage drive to house the archive. I think he meant how, like, if they grow, we would have to store them somewhere. And he's also open to talking to Tim or anybody that might be interested in implementing a program. I thought that was cool. So I'm just putting that out there.
So
I know when the cafe opens, they're gonna sell books there. So I don't know if that's the kind of what you're talking about, but they'll have like ongoing used book sales there. It won't be like a one-time event. It'll be like an ongoing thing from what I understand.
Oh, okay, so that's good.
And there's a, a long answer to the book sale question, but, we did a monthly book sale prior to the construction project. We were always, it was a good source of, community engagement. A lot of people would come. In fact, so many people would come that it was judged to be unsafe. And, because it would start at 10 o'clock and you'd have 200 people in the cafe room at 10 o'clock, which is more than the fire code. And they'd all be kind of elbowing each other and so forth. But at any rate, it was volunteer based in terms of sorting the donations. I think it's a charming and lovely thing that people apparently cannot throw away or recycle a book. But we would get, books that had been dipped in coffee and were Reader's Digest condensed bestsellers from 1952. And people think there's a lot more value to some of their books. We would love to do some kind of a book sale operation again. Frankly, we did not have the flexibility when we were in the design phase of this project to build in enough space to do that on a regular basis. So if we were to develop either an ongoing book sale other than the small one that'll be part of the cafe, we basically need more space. You will, when you tell people they can donate books to the library for a book sale, you'll get 15 boxes a day, every day. And that very quickly fills a room like this. It's so constant that it's a $30,000 as of the last time we did it, annual revenue. That probably costs you $100,000 a year to deal with. And with neighboring libraries doing it, I'm fine with that. I'm not saying I don't want to do a book sale, but I'm happy to refer people to Schenectady or to Voorheesville right now, because they both have good book sales. It's just this, I'm not trying to sound critical of whoever suggested this idea to you, but it's a lot more work than it looks. I think it's a goal, get the cafe open, see how that goes, then find some space in here and find some volunteers so that you can process these donations. Yeah, I'm willing to do it, but one step at a time is
Where
kind of.
would the library, where would the books come that are being sold in the cafe?
So right now they're coming from the books we withdraw from our collection, but I have thought about, issuing the call to the public that they can, donate that way. When we did allow book donations prior to construction, we had guidelines like, guidelines that nobody would follow, like, book has to be clean, it has to be 5 years old or less, but you get so much garbage. It was really a constant source of frustration. It was a minor revenue stream in terms of we recycled a lot of paper that, I'm glad to recycle, and they used to pay us for our paper recycling, but it's really weird. There's this like cultural dissonance between like, I have a hard time throwing a book away or recycling a book, right? And so I presume to all of you, but like if you look in the little free library out here, sometimes you look in there and you go, really? Somebody thinks that they're gonna drop off the Proceedings of the American Ornithological Society from 1972 or a medical journal from the same time, and that some other member of the community is going to go, oh my God, this is exactly what I was looking. It's not everything is the most recent what's her name, Colleen Hoover. That will sell, but not the Colleen Hoover, because she's a relatively recent phenomenon, but the Clive Cussler from 15 years ago probably isn't going to sell, but a lot of them will land on our doorstep, So I'm open to it, but haven't had time to work on it. I think it is a tremendous opportunity for the foundation, but I've tried to sell it to the foundation before. Like, you can we have software with our automated sorting system, which will read the barcode of a book and instantly tell you whether there's an online market for it. So if our foundation or any volunteers wanted to maintain a website or a portion of our website where we scanned all the stuff coming in and put it into recycling or sell online, it seems to me like a potentially very good revenue source. There were 2 or 3 wonderful ladies prior to the pandemic that 2 is the actual number that devoted a lot of time to sorting the incoming books and so forth. I have not personally spoken to them since we reopened, but one of them I know got a job and kind of said, I'm going to be getting a job and I don't know that I'm going to be doing, I'd be happy to reach out to them. But I like personally the Voorheesville model the best, which is that they constructed a mobile shed that they keep in their parking lot that can serve as both a sorting facility and, when they have a volunteer to open it up, a sales facility that you can walk into it. And so there's a fiction section and a children's section and nonfiction as well. And I presume use volunteers. I don't happen to know how they do it there, but they have a sale like 2 Saturdays a month or something like that, because that's when they have someone who's willing to volunteer to be out in the shed in their parking lot. Probably it goes a little better in the nice months of the year, because that shed is not heated or doesn't have electricity. And we do have a lot of space where we could do something like that in our 2 auxiliary parking lots. But in terms of a room in here that could be a constant book sale, we don't really have it, and then in terms of the once a month book sale, yeah, really interesting to me. I don't want to try to point fingers at anybody, but I used to always say, well, we need to move this monthly book sale from the Normanskill room, which is the cafe room, to the Helderberg room, because it's so much bigger. So the 200 people that are here at 10 o'clock will do less damage to one another when they rush into the room together. And I would get a lot of pushback on that, because 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning is the prime time to have a library program. And it was our only library programming space at the time. Now we have a great big room over in the youth area, and we also have the Westbrook room. So we could theoretically reinstitute a monthly book sale in the Helderberg room. The two real bars to it are, where do you keep the books from month to month? And then who sorts them and prices them and staffs the sale? And the volunteers we used prior to the construction did a great job and might be willing to come back. And then again, might not. But I do think it's a potential area where we could get some volunteers involved.
So maybe not monthly, but maybe like quarterly.
Yeah.
So 2 really quick things. Just a reminder that part of the farmers market contract allows us to have a table at the farmers market.
That's what I was gonna say.
So just a quick mention of that. I think we had mentioned selling books at that and also having board representation there. So there's that. And then when I had done my listening tour, someone, I think not just one person, but maybe a few people had mentioned the Voorheesville shed idea and maybe implementing something similar here at our library. So it was a potential item that was going to come up in the Building and Grounds Committee. So I had it on my radar to bring up at some point. We just have had more pressing things, and it was something I was going to visit maybe after the cafe opened. So we are doing one big thing at a time. So, but we will have the used books in the cafe. And then if anybody's interested in volunteering at the farmers market, I know I could do it this year now that my health is improved. So I could help man the table with somebody else if we want to do that there.
Yeah, I know, I could do that too. I'd love
Yeah.
to do that. But where would the books come from? From the library?
We do withdraw enough books that we could put a table full of books outside.
Okay.
Yeah, that's doable. And then what I would predict you'll get is people will say, can I bring you books as well? And, you know, you can convince them that they can only bring good books, then that'll work.
In the back lot corner, because those books.
That is a company from Rotterdam. Trying to remember the name of the company, but it's a
Warehouse.
bulk book warehouse. Thank you. So it's a little family-owned business in Rotterdam, and they sell them online, and we get nothing from it. But as I said to a member of the public who happens to be my neighbor the other day, we get nothing from it except we don't have to deal with 10 boxes of books on our front doorstep every morning because they're over there instead of here. But if we stopped that arrangement, which we get nothing out of except that we don't have to deal with these books, we would be getting books in. Like, you don't even have to issue the call to the public that you can drop off your books because they come anyway. I don't know if that, Joanne, is your experience at Altamont, but people just come in with boxes and bags full of books. We do still find them on the porch every now and then. And we put them in the little free library, or a lot of it is just recycling type stuff. You
So
know,
what do we do with the ones that we think won't sell?
recycle, you know.
Why don't you just put it, if we did it at the farmer's market, which is a great idea,
Mhm.
so be on a weekly basis,
Mhm.
have a bid that says free.
Sure. Mhm.
So somebody might be interested in,
Yep.
know,
And
the
then at
Audubon Society of Everest.
Sure, and then at the end of the market, you just wheel it back to the recycling
Yeah, put it on
dumpster.
a rolling bin. a rolling bin,
Yep, so,
And then recycle it. But some people, are allured by the word free.
sure, that's true, that's true. And then the other thing is, we could easily, if the two board members who've so far volunteered, and I would join you, we could say, hey, during the farmer's market, you can bring us up to one grocery bag full of books that you'd like us to resell to support the library. So we could have intake and sales going on at the same time.
Would you restrict it to the farmer's market in one bag?
I would say, yeah, I wouldn't say grocery bag because they're big
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're plastic.
Yeah,
So I would just say like 5.
5 books.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep,
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
And then, weekly thing for the summer.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about a 200-person stampede.
Yep.
They can stampede out there.
One of the other perceived problems, and I didn't really think it was that much of a problem, but there are some enterprising young people who have the software that they can scan a barcode and know if they can sell the book online. So they would be first in line with 4 or 5 empty boxes. And,
Good for them.
that was my thought, like, but the other book buyers were like, they're just reselling, they're not
They're
pure.
just grumpy people.
Yeah, so, but, yep.
Bookshelves, English major books.
There you go. English major books are great. So anyway, I like this, I like the idea of obviously selling in the cafe. And then I like this idea of using the farmer's market over the short terms. And I can reach out to Voorheesville and get the details on what they do. Because once the cafe opens, that is probably the next most, I don't know if pressing is the word, but it's an opportunity to serve the community that wants to read and to recycle it in the reusing way, like you read a book and then you pass it on to me and I read it, and if the library can get a buck in the process, great, So I'll jump in with you too and try to help.
Maybe we can make a schedule.
Sure. Yeah. So, I like the farmer's market anyway, so.
So they start in June, according to the.
June,
contract, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
June.
pretty soon.
3rd or 4th, I think. I can't remember what that first Sunday.
Will the library provide the table
Sure, yeah,
and like somewhere to keep the money or whatever?
sure, yeah, we can put that
The
together.
piggy bank?
Yeah, yep, so,
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah.
Maybe we can get Scott Abrams to card for what the ones we don't want.
there you go. Good luck with that.
Yeah. He's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy. And yesterday was his birthday. I should not say, it was a milestone birthday. Since this is a public meeting, I won't say which milestone, so. But he invited several of us to a party I couldn't. So.
Is there anything else?
I just want to add to for Narina's sake, that the question of selling used books is probably the most heard question since we reopened. I mean, the public really wants it, you know, it's just that it is a lot of work, so, but there are a lot of people that want that to happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, because I know when, I think Schenectady does, or maybe Troy, there's a big one, and they just like have this massive advertisement everywhere, and I just can't wait for that weekend. I just go there and buy everything I don't need. So, you know,
And then you donate it to.
no, I don't. I just keep it in my to be read, which keeps growing. So, and then I keep buying stuff online too.
So a really cool meme about this is that you shouldn't feel bad about all the unread books. You should think of them like your wine cellar. So when the right occasion comes, then you'll have the book to go with that occasion.
I keep asking people, what is the phobia that you will never read all the books that you want to read in your lifetime? And I don't get an answer to it ever. So if anyone ever comes up with that name, no, I have that. Yes, I have that too.
Old English major.
No,
And it's, if it weren't true, that would be a bad thing, like if you were done reading, I've read all the books I want to read, that's not
as long
good.
as they're being written,
Yeah.
you can have to have them read, so.
Anyway,
Right,
so yeah, we'll take some baby steps toward that and try to
good.
satisfy that desire on the part of the public.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
All right.
So is there any other new business? Does anyone else have anything else? Better executive session. So, is there any more public input?
For public input, I did just want to mention that in the past 4 months, we've gotten 9 5-star reviews on Google. So just wanted to bring that out. Great. I put one of them in my report, but yeah, so I would say we're on a good roll with that.
That's awesome.
And, just for clarification purpose, I don't think we've gotten any scathing reviews during the same time period.
No, it's 9 5-star in a row. Like so.
We're not even getting 3-star here. We're
Some comments and some just stars, so, yeah.
Anything else?
Can I mention one little thing? Noreen, I didn't lose it in your 2 comments that you made. One was about the table. The other was about some gentleman.
The archive.
Yeah, the gentleman, I don't know, was it a man or
Yes,
was it?
yep.
Pass back to him to take that one step further and maybe have a mobile video going into where people have great minds left yet, but their bodies are not there.
Yeah,
It's nursing homes or different places.
right.
The woman, one of the 2 women who were a team that won our local spelling bee and then went and represented us at Colony is 92 years old and came over from the Peregrine Guilderland. Beat all the young people. So.
Just a thought.
Yeah, definitely.
For the record, we have done that kind of program once in the last 9 years. It was oral histories that were then converted into books that were published by the book house, the publishing wing of the book house, and they're in the collection. And I just sound terrible. I don't mean this in a bad way, but about 10 or 12 people participated. So like if we do that oral history type thing, we have to really get behind it. Like everybody's got to commit to doing 3 or something like that. Because when you make
Yeah, you almost have to promote it within,
Yeah.
because some of these people don't want you in those places.
Yeah.
That's a great suggestion. Nursing homes,
Right.
senior citizens.
They have stories,
They've got valuable stories.
they have history. They lived it.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? All right.
Nice meeting you all.
Thank you, Frank.
DES.
Okay, nice.
Spell it backwards at C. At the beginning of good thing. Right?
Related to RGD, who was the center for the hoop.
Actually, it came from the Midwest.
Yeah.
You know, they sold it.
These, yeah. Yeah. I think my brother like it.
Okay, good job. See you later, buddy. Stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Have
Thank you.
fun.
Yeah.
You had a photo.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night.